Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. Today we're going to talk about the mysterious disappearance of the Gibson ES-235. This was a model introduced in 2018 as part of the new 2019 lineup of guitars. Because back in the Henry Juskowitz era, guitars were like cars. Meaning at the end of the year is when the new models came out. So this was technically a 2019 model, but it came out in late 2018. And this is the ES-235. Now, kind of what they've done with this thing is it's an ES-125 but modernized. And what we're talking about here on this particular guitar is it's a thin line body style. It's a semi-hollow guitar with a center maple block. But an ES-125 would normally have a floating bridge and a trapeze-style tailpiece. Basically, Gibson's marketing for this particular model itself says this was a blend of an ES-125 with a Les Paul. Essentially, the only thing this took from a Les Paul is the bridge and tailpiece setup. However, in Sweetwater's description, they kind of compared it to an ES-175, which, yes, that's kind of what the body style's going after, kind of like a thin line ES-175 like they did in the 70s. But not exactly the same because you don't get all the fancy attributes. And it is a historic ABR1 bridge setup here, and this was made in the old Memphis plant before they shut it down. And I think that's a good reason as to why this model has disappeared off the face of the earth, and it only lived for like a year and a half. Because these things disappeared around mid-2019. You can't buy these at a store anymore. And initially, I think it has everything to do with the move. They shut Memphis down, they're moving it back to Nashville to do all these ES-styled instruments. But then they had some time to adjust to that, and then, you know, the pandemic and stuff. I think that's why all these weird niche-modeled ES-style guitars have just kind of disappeared. I mean, you can hardly even get the core model lineups that they introduced for the ES series, like the 335, 345, 355s, because there's just such a backlog of these guys. So will we ever see the ES-235 return to the Gibson rosters? I don't know, but it kind of made for an interesting story, especially this one. Because now we have to talk about the finish options. Originally, the Gibson website said these only came in ebony. However, there are a few more finishes than that. You can find an ebony one, a satin black, so just a satin version of the ebony, a cherry colored one, a vintage sunburst, a figure top aquamarine version, and then the rarest of them all is this guy right here. Who messed up this paint job is probably what you're saying. This is called the 34 burst. Why is it called the 34 burst? Because in 1934, Gibson introduced the Super 400 model, and that first year had a teardrop shape like this. It's just a very small blah. It's a very acquired taste, but for me, it's such a beautiful finish because of what it represents. A very high-end arch top. There were other models that also got similar finishes, but by 1935, they had enlarged the burst to kind of look more similar to what we're familiar yet today with. So while an acquired taste, I think it is a beautiful recreation of this. I'm also noticing that the back is flat. The fact that they've disappeared off of the market has had a real interesting play on the used market. So brand new, these were advertised at $1,799. However, all the used ones on the market are that price or higher. I really view this particular version to be a future collectible. Because once again, the limited edition finish, harkening back to the golden era of Gibson. If this would have had one of those old style Gibson logos on it, that would have made it even better. But the fact that these came up, went away so quickly, and it's a limited edition finish, these things will continue to go up in value, in my opinion. I'm not always right about these things, but this one, I'm pretty confident. It's pretty cool. But to learn more about this elusive finish and model, let's go ahead and throw it on the workbench and take an individual look at its parts and specs. Isn't that much better? Polished her up, it looks good. Remember, this was a used guitar, it's not brand new, so all these scratches we're seeing, that's from the previous owner. That came out looking nice after I poured some time into it. So let's go ahead and dive in here. Our pickups in here are Burst Bucker Rhythm Pro and Lead Pro. And judging by the residue I see here, I'm guessing these were wax potted at the factory. So you actually get really nice pickups in here. And within the circuit, our bridge pickup reads 8.11 k ohms, and our neck is 7.58. Middle position, somewhere in between, 3.92. No fancy electronics or anything on this guy though, just standard stuff. A little bit more on those in a minute though, because we gotta look at the pickup cavities first. These are really clean. In the last 275 prototype video, I was telling you guys, I've never seen a really clean ES styled guitar. This has to be the cleanest looking constructed one so far. I mean, we'll have to take a look on the inside here in a minute. I mean, there's still some splintering of the wood right there that could have been cleaned up, but all things considered, it's not half bad, especially considering the spruce bracing. It's not quite as splintery. But let's go ahead and get that endoscope out to look on the inside here. First off, I want to clarify something. I was wrong on my terms last time. This right here is your bracing, that spruce that we're talking about. Deeper within your cavities, these guys right here, they're called kerfing. I just always thought that was part of the bracing because that's kind of what they're doing. They're just adding strength to the edges. So it's just little blocks of wood that get glued there. That way it's not just a single seam line. So they've got that going all along the edges. But here we can see the cutaway coming to a point. It looks like they don't do any of the kerfing within the cutaway itself. That's what you're seeing right there, the more flat edged. But here we can see the pots. You've got orange drop capacitors on these guys, and the spec sheets say they're 500K. As far as in the other F-hole, we can see the tag right here that says it's a gloss ES-235, and you can see our serial number dating it to 2018. And then on the inside here, we can see the maple center block, and right up there, there's some additional spruce bracing on the top. But it doesn't appear that they have to use any on the bottom, and right up here we can see our toggle switch. So what's kind of interesting right here is what you're seeing, that's like where the neck pickup goes. There's a little block that they put in there, but the traditional center maple block doesn't actually start until the bridge pickup cavity to go all the way down for the rest of the guitar. So just to clarify, there's a block of wood right here that they route out in order to put the neck pickup in, and then there's just a gap right here, and then they have that center block starting right there. I don't know, maybe it all starts off as one thing and they route it out. I'm not sure on that part of the construction, but everything else is, you know, just what you would expect on these. This does have a very slight belly to it. It's not very pronounced though. It's very, very subtle. You can just kind of see it right there, how this starts to go up. It's not as big as like other archtop guitars. Kind of interesting that they left it without a pickguard at all. I think it would look nice with one. You could always add one if you wanted to. But as far as our bridge, it is a true ABR1 bridge. It says Gibson ABR1 on the back. And of course it's mounted traditionally, directly into the wood, no studs. I was quite shocked to see that the tailpiece is not Advanced Plating Incorporated branded. It's the older style. I haven't torn apart many Memphis guitars. I'm guessing that's probably just how those are. But you can see, you know, even in the short time that this thing was played by somebody, the plating of the nickel hardware has really kind of tarnished. Easy to replace, though, if you don't like that. I was tempted to do it myself, but I only have chrome ones handy. But as far as the knobs, black reflectors in style. They read volume, volume, tone, tone, and that's exactly what they do. I do want to point out that there is a very small lacquer chip right there. Now, whether that happened at the factory or not, I don't know, but it is there. Looks like we got a couple of scratches on our pickups too. And you can still see some scratching in this area. There's a slightly deeper one just running right there. Now, if you went super buffing guy on this, I'm sure you could get pretty much everything out. But if you are interested in purchasing this on my website after my video is done, you can do so at troglysguitarshow.com. This is one of those guitars I'll kick myself for selling, though, because it's so rare and I love it, but I've got a project I'm working on. But here we can see the sharp, pointy cutaway called the Florentine cut. Grabbing these dimensions, it's about 10 inches up here, so that's a little bit bigger than a Les Paul, and then roughly 15 or so, and about 17 inches long of a body. But the top, back, and sides are created in a very traditional way. It's the maple poplar maple sandwich that they put together before bending it. But moving on from our maple poplar maple body, we get a maple neck. One piece, even. We'll take a look at that in a minute, but the regular rosewood fretboard. I wish these could have got a cooler inlay, but I guess if they're going for the ES-125, that's kind of why these have the dots. I've never been a big fan of dots unless there's binding, and there's no binding on this, but doesn't this fretboard look great now that I cleaned and conditioned it? We've got the standard 22 medium jumbo frets on a 12-inch radius with a 24 3/4 inch scale length.
The bone nut measures 1.66 inches and increases to 2.05 by the 12th. First fret neck depth 0.91 and 0.98 by the 12th. Classified as a C neck profile. We'll take a look at that on the back too. As far as the headstock goes, very basic. Just a Gibson silkscreen, regular truss rod style with a blank truss rod cover, and our vintage button style tuners here. I do want to take a second to mention that just like on that prototype, remember how I told you guys how the nut moves like it wasn't glued down properly? I'm thinking what it is there is an issue at Gibson Memphis that they route the nut slot slightly too big. Like you can kind of even see what I'm talking about right there. It's still glued in place. You can't rip it off unless you're trying, but you can wiggle it up and down just a hair. So keep that in mind if you're buying like a 2018, 2019 Gibson Memphis guitar. I haven't noticed any negative attributes from that, but you know, if you give it a good whack, it might fall out. I forgot how satisfying it is to have a dirty guitar, then you take some time to clean it up and polish it up and just go, wow, I can't believe it's the same one. So a little bit of an update on the tailpiece. I just took a little bit of steel wool to it on a hunch, and yeah, you can still see some of the pitting, but at least you can't feel it anymore. And from far away, you can't even tell a difference. So I no longer say that you should have to replace that. I mean, if you really hate the pitting when you look up close, yeah, okay, but at least you don't feel it anymore. But let's go ahead and check out the back side. So I guess we still need to find out how deep this is. I would say 1 3/4 inches. So definitely thin line in style, but we do have binding along the whole guitar. I think they mainly put binding on these types of guys to hide the seam lines of the maple poplar maple joining together. But you get a strap button down here, your output jack on the side, no jack plate or anything, and one at the base of the heel. But it is important to note, this is a flat back. There is no arch to the back on this one. I guess that would make sense why it wouldn't have bracing underneath the maple block, since it is flat. I'm sure that's how they save some money creating these things, but I've always loved the maple wood grain on the backs of ES-styled instruments. Just in case you don't know, ES stands for Electric Spanish. But there you can see our neck join line, as well as the edges. But check this out, a one-piece maple neck. You don't see that too often in Gibson territory. Usually it's a lower end guitar, because when Gibson does fancy maple necks, they usually make a multi-piece. They put the walnut stripes in them. This is just single piece, and you know, this actually has a little bit of flamed figuring. You can see how it goes from a light color to a dark color. That's because the wood grain reflecting light in a different way. I wouldn't advertise this as a heavily flamed neck by any means, but it's just the way that the wood is. So backside of the headstock here, we can see our Kluson Deluxe tuners. It's not the strip style. They're all individual tuners, so not quite vintage looking, but still old. But our serial number dates this one to 2018, 344th day of the year, so that's pretty late. It was the 219th in production because these guys start at 500. As this thing has started to age, you can see where the lacquer has sank. That's just showing you the headstock wing join area. If you don't know what I'm talking about, that's what that is right there. To get the open book headstock shape, Gibson joins 2 pieces of wood to the outside. And here's what the neck shape looks like. 1st fret, 12th fret. I would call this about a medium neck profile. And before we capture the weight, take a look at that. You see how the binding has aged? If you look along the side markers right here, you can see those are also yellow. So on top of the 34 burst finish, they actually have a tinted yellow lacquer over top of this entire guitar. That's what creates that. So that gives you a more vintage look on this one as well. All said and done, this weighs 6 pounds, 15.3 ounces, so pretty much 7 pounds right on the nose. Let's go ahead, plug it in, and hear how this thing sounds. I don't know why, but this guitar gives me the Doors vibe for some reason, so we're going to use that little Love Me 2 Times riff for this episode. Go with our neck pickup here. We just heard the middle.
be honest, when I took this thing out of the case and felt it, I didn't think I was going to like it as much as the other thin lines I've had, but once again, this whole thin line semi-hollow body guitar sounds fantastic. So these neck pickup tones, nice and juicy without being too muddy. But yet the middle position is still that super chiminess. Nice and spanky bridge yet too. Gotta say, love the middle and the neck position. The bridge is good too, but the other ones kind of steal the show for the clean tones anyways. Let's go ahead and switch over to some dirt. As far as feedback goes, it's honestly really good. So I had the exact same settings as the last time where it would kind of squeal on that chambered out center block. But on this one, I don't have any of those issues until I really crank the gain up. So you can do the feedback thing if you want to. I love it. You go from rock star type tones to just beautiful jazz. What are my final thoughts on the ES-235 34 burst? Fantastic guitar. As I was saying, at first I was a little bit worried if I was going to like this one as much. It didn't feel as nice at first, and it kind of had a lesser appearance to it because of the whole dot inlay thing. But once again, plug it in, instant bonding moment. I think what ultimately sells this guitar for me, not just the finish. I get that it's an acquired taste. It's kind of a vintage thing. But it's the ambered over lacquer. So you get these kind of yellowed looking things right here. It makes it look and feel like a vintage guitar, especially on the side of the nut. You can easily tell the color difference right there. Pure white to that ambered over hue. So it's kind of got that going for it.
However, even though I really enjoyed this guitar, listening back to the recording, I definitely prefer the sound of the P90 pickups. Humbuckers just don't quite do it for me on semi-hollow guitars.
But wouldn't it be cool if you had like sweet banjo inlays on this or something? You know, the Hearts and Flowers model, the older style Gibson logo. I think that's really all this thing is missing from making it a really, really cool little ES instrument. I also want to talk about the neck profile. Now that I've played it, it definitely has started to feel a bit bigger, more akin to a regular 50s style neck. It's nice and rounded, not being overly chunky, kind of like those 50s Les Paul standards, but maybe just a hair smaller than that. It's incredibly comfortable for me. So if nothing else, I hope you check one of these out one day if you ever see one used in a shop. Thank you, Troglodytes, for tuning in today. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care.